Smarter than ever, Taekwondo leaps toward a new future, connecting the world through a single movement. The spirit of Korea meets the boundless energy of K-pop. No longer just a sport, Taekwondo is at the heart of K-culture, bringing Korea's spirit to the world. A beautiful culture, connecting heart to heart. We now strive to safeguard Taekwondo's community training culture as a treasured heritage for all humanity. The pride of Korea, Taekwondo.
Ideas ahead of their time have shaped a better world. A man who believed that culture could bring peace to the world. Kim Koo. The one thing I seek in infinite quantity is the power of a highly developed culture. This is because the power of culture brings happiness and meaning to our lives, and by extension, to the lives of others. My wish, culture of peace. 150th anniversary of the birth of Kim Koo.
Fears of further flooding are growing along the Nepal-China border after a dam reportedly collapsed in Tibet. The warning comes as Nepal's flood death toll continues to climb, with thousands still missing. South Korea's rapid response team has arrived in Nepal to support search efforts for 9 Korean nationals still unaccounted for. And South Korea, the U.S. and Japan will hold their annual Freedom Edge exercise near Jeju Island next month, aimed at countering North Korea's nuclear and missile threats. We begin in Nepal tonight, where fears of another major flood are growing after a dam reportedly collapsed across the border in Tibet. The latest threat comes as hundreds have been killed in Wednesday's devastating floods, with more than 1,500 people still missing. An Sung-jin leads our coverage tonight.
The Himalayan region along the Nepal-Tibet border faces fear of another flood after a dam reportedly collapsed. This comes just 2 days after a deadly flood devastated the region. According to AFP on Friday, Nepalese authorities noted that a dam on the Chinese side of Tibet had collapsed. Nepal police urged all security personnel and rescue workers involved in search and relief operations to remain on high alert and move to safer areas immediately.
Everyone is being evacuated, and they are being taken to a safe location.
The fatal flood which struck on Wednesday has killed at least 469 people in Nepal, with more than 1,500 people missing. Among those missing are more than 500 foreigners from countries including the United States, the UK, and India.
My brother should be rescued. I don't know how and where he is. He has been missing for 3 days.
Nepal police said more than 1,500 people had been rescued from flood-hit areas as of Friday morning. Nepal's foreign ministry on the same day stated that the country currently does not need assistance from other nations in its operations. In the meantime, China has resumed rescue efforts at the Nepal-Tibet border after it suspended operations over fears that a newly formed lake could burst its banks. Scientists have suggested that the disaster may be linked to the effects of climate change in the Himalayas, where rising temperatures increase the risk of massive glaciers and rocks collapsing. It is believed that a glacier about 600 meters wide has collapsed together with surrounding rock, causing a magnitude 5.2 earthquake. The resulting ice and debris are believed to have triggered severe flooding across downstream areas. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
South Korea's rapid response team is in Nepal searching for the 9 missing Koreans, while 9 others who had been stranded have been airlifted to safety. Our foreign affairs correspondent Oh Soo-young with the latest.
9 Koreans remain out of contact in flood-hit Nepal as government and corporate teams prepare helicopters to launch search operations near the disaster site. The Foreign Ministry said Friday there still had been no contact with the 9, while a Nepalese military helicopter had flown 9 of 10 stranded Koreans from a temporary shelter to safety. The remaining Korean, a site manager at a hydroelectric power project involving Tusan Enability and Korea Southeast Power, stay behind with a Korean embassy staff. The project site in Nepal's northern ROK-U.S district was struck by severe flooding on Wednesday morning local time, prompting Seoul to dispatch an 11-member government rapid response team. Upon their arrival on Thursday night, they began coordinating with response teams from the 2 companies. A Foreign Ministry official told reporters Friday that the Korean embassy and the companies have procured helicopters, but without permission to fly them, have not yet launched search operations. Seoul's government representative for Consular Affairs, Im Sang-woo, is also working to secure cooperation from local authorities to conduct the search. The teams plan to concentrate initially on the heavily damaged weir dam and workers' accommodation. Beyond rescuing Korean nationals, Seoul is also considering deploying a Korea disaster relief team to support the wider flood response, with Foreign Minister Cheonan saying any additional contingent could involve dozens of personnel. Cho asked his Nepalese counterpart on Thursday to fully support efforts to locate the 9 Koreans and pledged $1 million in humanitarian assistance. The Foreign Ministry on Friday announced the appointment of Park Jae-kyung as Korea's new ambassador to Nepal, with him swiftly travelling to Kathmandu over the weekend. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
In other news, South Korea, the U.S. and Japan will hold 5 days of joint defense drills off the waters of Jeju next month, keeping trilateral security cooperation on track. The move comes despite Washington's recent scaling back of some exercises with Seoul. Our defense correspondent Park Gon-woo reports.
The trilateral military exercise Freedom Edge between South Korea, the U.S. and Japan is set to take place for 5 days, starting September 7th in international waters near Jeju Island. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said Friday the annual exercise is aimed at responding to North Korea's nuclear and missile threats while safeguarding peace and stability in the region. While the JCS described the exercise as defensive in nature without disclosing further details, one expert says this year's drills are expected to place a strong focus on the north.
Given North Korea's recent ballistic missile launch tests, this exercise will have a strong defensive focus in preparing for those threats. Freedom Edge is a multi-domain exercise, and exercises like this are necessary to enhance interoperability among the 3 countries and maintain close trilateral security cooperation.
The most recent Freedom Edge exercise was held last September, and this year's is expected to be similar in scale and scope, including maritime missile defense and cyber defense. A JCS official said the number of personnel participating from each country is still under review. This time, the exercise is drawing greater attention following the scaled-back ROK-U.S Freedom Shield exercise earlier this month. While a U.S. Forces Korea official said Friday that UFS and Freedom Edge should not be conflated, one expert says the exercise going ahead as scheduled still carries significance.
Despite concerns over the scale-back, Freedom Edge is going ahead as scheduled. Trilateral security cooperation may have lost some momentum since the start of the second Trump administration, but the exercise shows that the framework established under the Biden administration remains in place and that practical cooperation is continuing.
As with the previous Freedom Edge exercise, a U.S. aircraft carrier may not take part this time, with the Japan-based USS George Washington recently deployed to the Middle East amid the prolonged conflict with Iran. Still, the upcoming exercise is expected to serve as another test of how closely the 3 countries can maintain military coordination amid changing regional security conditions. Park Gon-woo, Arirang News.
South Korea's Blue House says it will closely coordinate with Washington for the resumption of North Korea-U.S. dialogue. Speaking to reporters Friday, National Security Advisor Ri Sung-rak stressed the importance of making actual progress on North Korea's nuclear issues. We added that the top office will ensure that Seoul does not get bypassed and vowed to maintain a robust security posture. He stressed the need to manage pending issues between Seoul and Washington, including follow-ups to U.S. investment and the dispute over U.S.-based e-commerce firm Coupang. Over in the Middle East, efforts to restart U.S.-Iran talks have hit a roadblock, with neither side willing to back down over the terms of their June agreement. Meanwhile, the U.S. military says it has cleared Iranian sea mines from key shipping lanes in the Strait of Hormuz. Kim Seo-young with the latest.
Mediators, including Pakistan, Oman, and Qatar, have spent the past week trying to restart talks between Washington and Tehran, but so far, with little to show for it. According to the Wall Street Journal, the Trump administration has repeatedly told mediators it has no interest in returning to the terms of the Memorandum of Understanding signed back in June. That preliminary deal aimed to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and open the door to nuclear talks, but collapsed within weeks after Iran began attacking ships in the waterway. Iran isn't budging either. Hardliners in Tehran are warning the U.S. against any attempt to depart from the June agreement, insisting that they alone should set the terms for reopening the strait. Meanwhile, U.S. Central Command says on Friday that American forces have finished clearing all Iranian sea mines along the internationally recognized transit route in the Strait of Hormuz. CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper called it a major milestone, arguing that the routes are now fully free of mines Iran's Revolutionary Guard laid there months ago. This comes after Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi wrote to the United Nations, urging member states to condemn new U.S. sanctions targeting Tehran's economy. The UN spokesperson responded Friday.
I think that the Secretary General is concerned about any new measures, any additional rhetoric that we see that could lead to an escalation. The only way to reach a durable settlement is through dialogue.
For now, with both Washington and Tehran dug in, the path back to the negotiating table remains unclear. Kim Seo-young, Arirang News.
Now, turning to the economy, Korea's strong semiconductor exports have had a positive effect on local governments. Exports from all 16 major provincial and metropolitan governments across the country increased this year, with chips having provided major boosts to regional manufacturing hubs. The Korea Customs Service claimed combined exports reached $595.1 billion from January to July, marking the first across-the-board growth in 5 years. Gyeonggi-do province posted the largest export volume at over $195 billion, followed by Chungcheongnam-do province and Ulsan City. Jeju Island recorded the highest export growth rate among all regions, with exports surging more than 280%. Growth has extended beyond semiconductors, with exports rising across all regions. President Lee Jae-myung has stressed the need to create more economic opportunities for young people, calling this a state responsibility. At a youth policy briefing on Friday at the Blue House, he vowed to expand the nation's economic growth to create such chances. He also promised to fix government policies to better reflect the needs of people in their 20s and 30s. SK hynix is expanding its chip-making footprint in the United States. The company has broken ground on its first US HBM facility in Indiana, with mass production set for 2029. Lee Joo-yeon has the story.
Next-generation high-bandwidth memory is a crucial component of the AI industry and will be manufactured in the United States for the first time, with production being handled by a Korean company. SK hynix held a groundbreaking ceremony on Thursday for its next-generation HBM advanced packaging fab in West Lafayette, Indiana. This is the company's first production facility in the United States, with plans to mass-produce AI memory, including next-generation HBM, starting in the third quarter of 2029.
At the event, SK hynix CEO Kwang No-jung revealed that the Indiana fab will feature an annual capacity of hundreds of thousands of wafers, highlighting the significance of this production capability.
Here in Indiana, we will build the first HBM advanced packaging facility in the United States. We will provide our customers with a new source of made in US HBM while strengthening the US semiconductor supply chain and contributing to national and economic security.
SK hynix is investing around $4 billion in the Indiana plant. Under a preliminary agreement with the U.S., the company will receive up to $450 million in direct funding and $500 million in loans through the CHIPS Act, a law designed to revitalize the U.S. semiconductor industry through financial incentives. This could be seen as a strategic move by SK hynix to establish a solid foothold in the U.S. and navigate potential trade risk, including semiconductor tariffs. U.S. Senator for Indiana Todd Young, who also led the passage of the 2022 CHIPS Act, has attended the ceremony, emphasizing the critical need for semiconductor manufacturing in the U.S.
And given the role microchips play in powering our economy and securing our nation, and the clear catastrophe that would follow if our supply of these was cut off, why would we ever rely on the goodwill or good fortune of other nations for their fabrication?
SK hynix also partnered with Purdue University, located in the area where the facility will be built, through an MOU to strengthen R&D and recruit talented engineers. Through this new HBM production base in the U.S., SK hynix is expected to solidify its leadership in the global AI semiconductor market. Lee Ju-yeon, Arirang News.
3 people have died in a fire at a paint materials factory operated by Daewon Industrial in Cheonan, Chungcheongnam-do Province. The body of a worker in their 70s was initially found near the scene, while 2 others believed to be Philippine nationals who had been reported missing were later found dead. 2 others have sustained injuries, and the fire was eventually brought under control about 2 hours and 37 minutes after it broke out on Friday morning. Authorities plan to conduct a joint investigation with firefighters to determine the exact cause of the explosion and the fire. Summer may not be just over yet, but September is just right around the corner, and Seoul is already gearing up for a packed cultural calendar. From major art festivals and a free museum admission to outdoor libraries, nighttime place tours, and fireworks, there's plenty to look forward to as we head into fall. So for a closer look into this, our culture correspondent Jung Hae-rim joins me in the studio. Big welcome, Hae-rim.
Good evening, Mo-kyun.
So let's start first with the arts sector. So next week, it seems like a pretty big week for art lovers. What's happening?
That's right. Seoul Art Week kicks off on Monday and runs through September 6th. It brings together 159 exhibitions and programs at 141 art spaces across the city. The city will also host some of the biggest events related to art, not only nationally but internationally, including Free Seoul and Kiev, drawing collectors, galleries, and art lovers from Korea and abroad. And if you're into art, next week is probably one of the best weeks of the year to be in Seoul. The National Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art, or MMCA, is offering free admission from September 1st through the 6th as part of the Korea Art Festival. And that applies to all 4 branches: Seoul, Gwacheon, Deoksugung, and Cheongju. One exhibition worth pointing out at the Seoul branch is a major solo exhibition by Korean installation artist Seo Do-ho. This exhibition spans roughly 3 decades of his career, from early works to some of his more recent projects. Deoksugung Palace is now free every Wednesday, so if you go next Wednesday, September 2nd, you could visit the palace and then stop by the MMCA Deoksugung branch, which will also be free during the festival week. Also, the Gwacheon branch is celebrating its 40th anniversary this year, so there will be many things to see.
Wow, definitely. It's a packed week for art lovers as well. But since the weather is kind of cooling down lately, Herim, could you introduce some of the outdoor options that we have?
Yeah, Morgan, August was an exhausting month. There was extreme heat, but things are cooling down. And while that's happening, outdoor activities are starting up again. The Seoul Outdoor Library returns beginning September 4th after taking a break during the hottest part of summer. It now operates at 3 major locations: Seoul Plaza, Gwanghwamun Square, and along Cheonggyecheon Stream. There are around 12,000 books available across the 3 locations this year, along with reading areas and cultural programs. What's also great this season is the accessibility for international visitors. The outdoor library features translated Korean literature and foreign language collections in English, Japanese, and Chinese. And along with beanbags, weekend performances, and family zones, it's designed as an easy, relaxing spot located right in the heart of Seoul.
Wow, I must have to check it out. Then, Herim, I hear that there's a nearby Gyeongbokgung Palace. There's some event over there. The nighttime opening is coming?
Exactly. So Gyeongbokgung nighttime opening, it begins fall time on September 2nd, and it's a completely different experience from visiting during the day. It's absolutely beautiful and stunning. The palace will be open at night from 7 to 9:30. Tickets went on sale this Wednesday, but there is a pro tip for those who want to visit. Anyone wearing traditional hanbok gets in completely free without needing an advance reservation. And there's another option for people who want a closer look at the palace. Special guided visits to Gyeonghaeru Pavilion and Hwangwon Pavilion also return from September 2nd after being suspended during the heat wave. Those tours are held on Wednesdays and Fridays.
Wow, so we've got art, we've got outdoor reading and nighttime palace visits. What about next week? Where can we go next week?
So Morgan, one of Seoul's most loved events is upcoming, and I, for one, am completely excited for it. The Seoul International Fireworks Festival, an annual fall event everyone can enjoy. Events begin on Friday, September 4th, with the main fireworks show taking place on Saturday, September 5th at Yeouido Hangang Park. There will also be daytime activities, food trucks, and a drone show before the fireworks begin. And every year, huge crowds gather not only in Yeouido, but along different parts of the river to watch. So if you're planning to go, this is definitely one event where you want to plan ahead and probably get there early. And I think that's really the story of next week.
Wow, sounds like a very good time to get out and enjoy the city. Herim, thanks for that today.
My pleasure.
Now, turning to the big screen, 10 years after it first brought the wartime suffering of Korean comfort women to audiences, Spirit's Homecoming is back in theaters. Its return comes as fewer survivors remain to tell their stories firsthand. Our Park Chae-ryung reports.
During Japan's colonial occupation of Korea, many women were forced into sexual slavery. As time passes, the number of survivors able to testify firsthand has shrunken year by year, leaving only 5 so-called comfort women still alive today. Against this backdrop, the 2016 film Spirit's Homecoming, which portrays the suffering of the victims, was recently re-released.
Here at CGV Yongsan, audiences are once again coming face to face with a story first brought to the screen 10 years ago.
Some moviegoers share their thoughts on the film.
I hope this re-release gives more people a chance to see it again and reflect once more on the history of the comfort women.
The problem of the Japanese military sexual slavery system is not a problem of the past, it's connected to reality because there's still women in many parts of the world that experience gender-specific violence and sexual violence. Even quite close to home in Ukraine, there's also a lot of violence against women as a war tactic, so I think it's an issue that we need to continue talking about.
The film is based on testimonies from victims of Japan's wartime sexual slavery and depicts the suffering of young Korean girls taken from their homes during the colonial era. When it first hit theaters in 2016, Spirit's Homecoming drew more than 3.5 million moviegoers, bringing renewed public attention to the victims' experiences. A decade later, however, the number of registered survivors still alive has fallen from 47 to just 5. As first-hand witnesses grow fewer, the director of the movie says the film has taken on another role.
A film alone cannot change reality, but a film can serve as a form of cultural evidence. I hope this film will help preserve this painful part of Korea's history and help prevent such a tragedy from ever happening again.
President Lee Jae-myung also marked the film's return in a social media post, calling on the public to remember the painful history and ensure that the victims' stories are not forgotten. 10 years after its first release, Spirit's Homecoming is returning not only as a film about the past, but also as a record for current and future generations. Park Chae-ryung, Arirang News.
Now shifting gears to sports. Virtual Taekwondo is set to make its debut at an official medal sport at this year's Asian Games. So what exactly is it, and what does it feel like to compete? Our Shin So-eun stepped into the virtual arena herself to check it out.
Two athletes face off, trading kicks, blocking attacks, and waiting for the perfect opening. Yet not a single blow physically touches their opponent. Instead, each athlete's avatar is calibrated to reflect their height, gender, and kicking angles, capturing even the subtle movements that translate into a point gauge in the virtual arena.
A total of 5 sensors, 2 on each leg, and 1 on my jacket, track every movement of my body, creating my own avatar. Once a VR headset goes on, I'm transported straight back to the virtual battleground.
Each bout consists of up to 3 60-second rounds, with the first athlete to take 2 rounds winning the match. Although it is considered an esport, trained Taekwondo athletes have a clear advantage as real-world skills determine their performance rather than button controls. 16 athletes representing 8 countries will compete. Among them, South Korea's An Hyang-sik is also set to take part in traditional Taekwondo sparring.
From the outside, it may look like we're just kicking the air, but it demands intense training and stamina. Competing in 2 events is tough, but I'm determined to win both.
By removing weight classes and allowing mixed gender matches, virtual Taekwondo enables athletes to compete on equal footing. Smaller athletes can capitalize on speed and combinations, while taller competitors benefit from their reach, turning physical differences into strategic advantages rather than limitations.
I think understanding distance and knowing when to land your kicks are key to improving performance in an actual match.
Backed by a global Taekwondo network with more than 12 million registered ROK-U.S rank holders, Virtual Taekwondo is now building its own certification courses for match operators.
Marking a new frontier for the esports, Virtual Taekwondo blends the physicality of Korean traditional martial arts with AI and virtual reality. Making its Asian Game debut, this sport signals Taekwondo's innovation for future generations while pushing the boundaries of mat-based competition. Shin So-eun, Arirang News, Wooju.
Rain is coming down across parts of the Chungcheongdo provinces and areas farther south, while showers are passing through parts of the capital area and Gangwon-do province. Heavy rain advisories are in effect for Pyeongtaek, Gyeonggi-do province and parts of the southern regions. As we head into the weekend, those rain clouds will spread across the country. For Saturday, Chungcheongnam-do and Jeollabuk-do provinces could see up to 80 millimeters of rain, while Seoul and other parts of the country could see up to 40 to 60 millimeters. And by Sunday morning, the rain will taper off across the central parts of the country, but many areas in the southern regions will still see rain through the day. Tomorrow, even with the rain, some areas could still have tropical night or tropical night-like temperatures. Seoul will start the day at 24 degrees Celsius and Busan 26 degrees. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will get up to 30 degrees, Daegu 31, and Gwangju 32 degrees. As the rain moves in, heat
heatwave alerts should gradually be lifted or scaled back. Now here's a look at the weather around the world.
And that's all we have for tonight. This was Kim Mo-kyan, and I'll be back with Within the Frame at 8:30 p.m. Korea time. Till then, goodbye.
For thousands of years, one breath has endured. More than a martial art, it is the Korean way of life. Taekwondo, connecting the world. Smarter than ever, Taekwondo leaps toward a new future, connecting the world through a single movement. The spirit of Korea meets the boundless energy of K-pop. No longer just a sport, Taekwondo is at the heart of K-culture, bringing Korea's spirit to the world. A beautiful culture, connecting heart to heart. We now strive to safeguard Taekwondo's community training culture as a treasured heritage for all humanity. The pride of Korea, Taekwondo.
It is not extravagant. It isn't even symmetrical. And yet, why does it remind us of the moon? This is the white porcelain we now know so well, the moon jar. Stripped of all decoration with its milky glaze, its imperfect, rounded curves and proportions resemble a full moon hanging in the night sky. Or perhaps it is the familiar name moon jar that leads us to think of the moon. But did you know it once had a different name? In the Joseon era, this jar was simply called 백항, meaning a white jar, or 백대항, a large white jar. So how did this simple white jar come to be seen as the moon? The master of abstract art Kim Han-gi was so fond of white porcelain that he even collected it. According to a memoir written by an antique dealer he frequented, it was after Korea's national liberation that Kim Han-gi began collecting ceramics, and he grew particularly fond of one white jar, naming it the moon jar. It was his close friend Choi Sun-woo, former director of the National Museum of Korea, who popularized the name. Through a newspaper column, he formally used the term moon jar, and it has since become the accepted name for this cultural heritage. The moon jar, like an old friend, comforting, like a mother's embrace, warm and gentle. What moon lingers in your heart tonight?
When did it all begin? The beginning of joy embedded in daily life, where steps of learning meet a bigger world, and history coexists. The legend continues. Innovative technologies come together to unfold a new future, building a better tomorrow. A joy accessible to all, always present in your daily life. JDC.
Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring the most pressing issues across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mo-gen. South Korea's tourism industry is having a record year. More than 10.7 million foreign visitors came to Korea in the first half of 2026, up 21% from a year earlier, while their card spending surged more than 50%. And it's not just the numbers that are changing. Visitors are coming from a wider range of countries, exploring more destinations outside Seoul, and increasingly looking for experiences built around food, beauty, and everyday Korean culture. With the government now expecting 23 million visitors this year, it's already looking beyond its original 30 million target and preparing for an era of 40 million foreign tourists. So what's behind Korea's tourism boom, and how are travel's trends changing, and is the country ready for the next wave of visitors? For more on this, we connect to Shin Hak-seung, Associate Professor of Tourism at Hanyang University. A big welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me here again.
And also joining us is Paul Hirschberger, content creator of Taste So Good. Good to see you.
Hi, good evening.
So let's start a discussion right away. First with Professor Shin, of course, with the numbers. So what is driving Korea's tourism boom, and how much of it comes down to K-culture?
Yeah, I think there are several reasons behind the recent growth in foreign visitors to Korea. As you mentioned, K-culture is certainly a major factor. Over the past 2 or 3 years, we have seen a steady increase in independent travelers, particularly those in their 20s and 30s who visit Korea because of their interest in K-culture. At the same time, Korea is now attracting a much broader range of international visitors, including more families and people from different age groups. This suggests that Korea is becoming a more mainstream tourism destination in the world, rather than a destination mainly for younger fans of Korean culture. There are also some external factors. In particular, the relatively weak Korean currency in recent years has made travel in Korea more affordable for international visitors and improved Korea's price competitiveness as a tourism destination. So I would say K-culture remains a major driver, but Korea's overall appeal as an international destination is also becoming broader.
Wow, so complex areas that weighed into this latest rise. Now to Mr. Hirschberger. So more people come, and are we also seeing a change in what draws them to Korea? Are food, beauty, shopping, and everyday Korean culture becoming as important as K-pop and K-dramas as well?
Absolutely. So these days, I constantly hear that Korea is the hot spot for visitors all around the world. And what I'm still seeing a lot that is that K-dramas and K-pop still tend to be kind of the gateway into Korean culture, kind of tends to be the first touch point that sends them down kind of a rabbit hole of discovering different parts of Korean culture. And I noticed maybe a decade ago, people would come to Korea to maybe try to retrace the footsteps of some of their favorite K-drama actors, whereas now they're trying to come here to have the experiences of what they see there. And so they're trying to go a little bit deeper. And I think we can't underestimate the power of all of our favorite movie, K-pop Demon Hunters, as I hear constantly how big of a factor that was for so many people that wanted to come to Korea, or maybe they were on the fence about it, but that kind of made it digestible and people started saying, why not? And with that, since the K-dramas are perhaps the gateway into the culture, they're coming here for the shopping, especially for the food. A lot of them are wanting traditional Korean food, but also Michelin-starred Korean food. And of course, we can't talk about Korea without talking about K-beauty, skincare, color analysis, and all those other beautiful parts of the culture.
Right. I think it's a very good way that you put it. These K-pop and K-dramas, they are really a gateway that leads to more interest in the Korean, other parts of Korean culture as well. So as these interests actually broaden, how is social media changing the way they actually travel? Do you think visitors are increasingly planning trips around places they find online?
Oh, 100%. These days, travel itineraries are dictated by algorithms. So before, where maybe you would travel with a guidebook or a whole bunch of printouts of what you want to do, these days you just save everything to TikTok, to Instagram, and you have your full itinerary there. Another big part of it too is also AI. People are going to AI search engines to help put those type of itineraries together, but they're also looking at live streams. They're looking at short little video clips. And a big part of this, we can also kind of look at even just a year ago when Hongdae became kind of a worldwide household name based off of one TikTok user's viral videos, and people started descending upon that. So I'm seeing that people's travel plans will change on a dime when they find a certain live stream or a TikTok video that they just resonate with.
Right. So it seems social media is really introducing various aspects of the country for people to experience in Korea. Now, it's not just travel habits that are changing. Professor Shin, Korea is also seeing more visitors from the U.S., Europe, and Southeast Asia, aside from traditional visitors. So how important is this shift beyond, our current visitors who have been common?
Yes, as you said, more visitors are now coming from the US, Europe, Southeast Asia, and other regions. And this shows that Korea is becoming more attractive as a global tourism destination. And I think this diversification is very positive for Korea's tourism industry. First, it reduces Korea's dependence on a few major markets, particularly China and Japan. This makes the tourism industry more resilient to sudden changes caused by political, diplomatic, or economic issues in any one country. And second, a more diverse visitor market can create demand for different types of tourism products and experiences. So diversification can contribute not only to growth in visitor numbers, but also to the overall development of Korea's tourism industry. However, Korea also needs to adapt to this change. For example, tourism information and services should be available in more languages beyond Chinese, Japanese, and English. We also need to better understand the cultural, religious, and dietary needs of visitors from Southeast Asia, Europe, Latin America, and other regions. So market diversification is a very positive change, but our tourism services also need to become more diverse. So if our visitors become more diverse, our tourism services need to become more diverse as well.
Right. So maybe it could be a great opportunity to further diversify our options as well. So as the visitor base expands, spending is rising even faster than the visitor numbers we hear. So up more than 50% in the first half. Professor Shin, what do you think is behind that surge?
Yeah, I think there are several reasons behind this strong increase in spending. And I think the most important change is how foreign tourists are spending their money in Korea. Their spending is expanding from traditional shopping and souvenirs to higher value services and experiences such as medical and beauty services, wellness, fine dining, performances, and other experiential activities. At the same time, as more tourists want to experience everyday Korean life, they are also spending more on everyday products and services that Koreans themselves use. So tourist spending is becoming more closely connected to local lifestyles and everyday consumption. We are also seeing more independent travelers and more visitors from long-haul markets. And these tourists often stay longer and spend across a wider range of tourism services. As I mentioned before, the weak Korean currency may also encourage visitors to spend more. So I think tourists visiting Korea are spending in more diverse ways and across a much wider range of experiences, products, and services.
Right. So as our Professor Shin has just touched upon, visitors are becoming more willing to pay for experiences rather than just a traditional shopping. Then, Mr. Hirschberger, then what kinds of experiences are gaining the most attention?
So these days, I think there's really two main categories. There's the services and the cultural experiences. So I see a lot of people are coming to Korea for things like color analysis, for scalp treatments. These days, health checkups are becoming bigger and bigger, and we can't forget about cosmetic and skincare treatments, but also with the cultural experiences. People are coming to Korea because they see these things on social media, they see these aspects in K-dramas, and they want to have these moments for themselves. I think a lot of times the demand is there, but the supply might not be there. I often talk to tourists and I ask them, what are some of their favorite experiences they've had while they're in Korea? And there's simple everyday things like going to a baseball game, going to a taekwondo class, or even just going to a barbecue and going to a noraebang to sing their favorite songs at karaoke. So people are willing to spend big money on those experiences because there's nowhere else in the world they can get those uniquely Korean experiences and just the everyday little moments that they can't get elsewhere.
Right, definitely. It's an experience that you can only have here in the country, of course. So we are also seeing more tourists venture outside of Seoul as well. But Professor Shin, do you think this is becoming a meaningful shift, or do you think it's still too concentrated in the capital?
Yeah, compared with the past, we are clearly seeing more international visitors traveling beyond Seoul. In particular, since the APEC summit in Gyeongju last year, there has been growing international attention to regional tourism destinations in Korea. And recently, we have seen a significant increase in foreign tourists visiting cities such as Busan, Gyeongju, and Gangneung. This is a very positive change. More international visitors to regional destinations can spread the economic benefits of tourism beyond Seoul, directly support local businesses, and also contribute to regional development as well. However, in absolute numbers, the majority of international tourists still travel mainly in Seoul and the surrounding metropolitan area. So tourism in Korea is still quite concentrated in the capital region. To change this, we need to improve regional airports and transportation connections between Seoul and other regions. We also need to develop more tourism products that connect Seoul with regional destinations.
Right, definitely. So even so, it's a great news that people are kind of getting more interest in areas outside of Seoul. Then what are they actually looking for in places like Busan or Gyeongju or Jeju, Mr. Hirschberger?
People just want to immerse themselves in the rich culture and heritage that is South Korea. So of course Seoul has something for everybody. It's fast paced, it's great for shopping and nightlife, but people want to take a step back. And as Professor Shin talked about earlier, there is a wide array of ages and genders and nationalities come to Korea. And each one of them is looking for something just a little bit different. So either they want the tranquil bamboo forest in Busan or the rich history of Gyeongju, or what I think a lot of people also want is different festivals, and it's always the cities that promote these the best that people go to. When we talk about Boryong, we talk about the Mud Festival. When we talk about Andong, we talk about the Mask Dance Festival. And so it's these places that are promoting themselves to the foreign guests and where the infrastructure is there for people to go. A lot of times people just don't know any better. They don't know about the beauty of Mokpo or the great surfing in different parts of the country, but when they do find out, they are wanting to go there. And also the food, people want to go to different provinces. They want to have their hand in as many different little provinces as possible just to have a better understanding. And again, from K-dramas and social media, they're aware of a lot of these things, but they just don't know how to get there or how to access them. But that's what they're longing for in a lot of ways.
So having said that, the government is now preparing for 40 million foreign foreign visitors a year. Professor Shin, do you think that's quite realistic? And what do you think needs to improve first to handle these many tourists?
Yeah, I think 40 million international visitors is an ambitious target, but it is certainly possible in the long term. As I said, Korea is becoming more attractive as a global destination, and its tourism market is also becoming more diverse. So if this growth continues, Korea has the potential to attract significantly more international visitors. However, the important question is not simply whether Korea can attract 40 million tourists, but whether Korea can manage 40 million tourists successfully. The first priority should be infrastructure. We need sufficient airport capacity, more international flights to regional airports, and better accommodation and transportation systems between Seoul and regional destinations. And also, as I said, accommodation capacity also needs to expand, particularly in regional areas with more options for different types of travelers. At the same time, we need to think about the quality of the tourism experiences. If visitor numbers increase too quickly, overcrowding, higher accommodation prices, transportation congestion, and conflict with local residents could become serious problems. So Korea should not focus only on increasing the numbers of visitors. We need to distribute tourists more effectively across different regions and different seasons while improving infrastructure and service quality.
Definitely a very important point. So the numbers may be achievable in the long run, but Korea really has to be ready for them. Now, finally, before we conclude our discussion tonight, Mr. Hirschberger, how does Korea turn more of these tourists into repeat visitors? What would make people actually want to keep coming back to the country?
Well, the good news is I often hear that people are bitten by the Korea travel bug and they do want to come back, and many of them do. They come here for the first time and they hit up those tourist spots. They stay in Myeongdong, they go to Seoul Tower, but they realize there's a lot more to the culture, and they realize that there's still so many places they need to see and go to. However, there's still some things holding back, just as Professor Shin mentioned. Some of the most common complaints or frustrations that I hear from travelers, especially solo travelers, are things like they have difficulties dining on their own. A lot of restaurants turn them down, or they require a 2-portion minimum, which is very normal in South Korea, but a lot of tourists don't understand that, or they feel kind of put off by that, or kind of change their experience of coming to Korea. So maybe somehow addressing that. There's still payment gateway problems with some cards not being accepted. There's been big strides and a lot of improvements with that, but I think there's still some ways to go. And again, as I mentioned earlier, just about a lack of information. By hopefully putting out more information about events and festivals and offerings of smaller cities and B and C tier cities across the country, people are going to want to go to these places. And so just letting them know that there's much more to Korea than just Seoul, Busan, Jeju, and just showing them how much there is to offer. I think Korea has everything that people want to visit, and they're going to want to visit multiple times. It's just letting them know all the things that are there. And I think a lot of that also has to do with just promoting the regional specialties, the regional foods, the regional festivals, and just all the great things that are a train ride or a short plane ride away on the peninsula.
Absolutely. And ultimately, it's really not just about bringing more people to the country, but also giving them a reason to keep coming back by making their trip even more convenient moving forward. Now, that's where we'll have to leave our discussion tonight. Thank you so much for your insights, Mr. Hirschberger.
Thank you so much.
And of course, Professor Shin, we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that'll be all from us on Within the Frame tonight. Be sure to tune in again next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Till then, stay informed and engaged.
Beyond the horizon, a piercing whistle cuts through the cold silence. It is the sound of a haenyeo, Korea's legendary women divers, breaking the surface after a dive. This haunting sound is called sumbisori, a forceful exhale, a return to life. 10 meters beneath the waves, sometimes plunging as deep as 20 meters, haenyeo descend into the sea with no oxygen tanks, no machines, no safety lines. They carry only one thing into the depths: their breath. The most wondrous moment comes when they rise to the surface. As lungs burn and oxygen runs thin comes sumbisori, a sharp whistle of breath meeting air once again. It is more than exhalation. It is survival transformed into sound. An astonishing technique that restores oxygen quickly, preparing them for another descent. Enduring crushing water pressure, they remain underwater for a few minutes. Yet through remarkable physical adaptation, rivaling that of semi-aquatic mammals, they harvest the sea to support their families. Their weathered faces, carved by salt and